All right, Matt. So what kind of music do you play for someone on their birthday?
I guess like happy birthday music. I don't know.
Gift wrapping? Huh?
Oh, man.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Graveyard. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Adam.
And my name's Matt.
Now, pull up a tombstone or settle into your casket and get comfortable because this is Graveyard Tales. All right, everybody, here we are again. Matt, how you doing tonight, brother?
I'm good, brother.
Good deal. Good deal. So before we get into it, we just want to say go check out the Podbelly Network at podbelly.com. You can find some different shows to listen to and some tips and tricks and stuff like that. So we're proud to be members of the Podbelly Network. Also want to say thank you to tonight's sponsors, Best Fiends and Raycon. And we'll talk more about them throughout the episode. While you're on the internet doing your Googling and some things that we can't talk about here on this show, go over to patreon.com/graveyardtales and you can sign up to become a patron. We really appreciate all of our patrons there. And we try to show that by putting out at least one bonus episode a week. And then our $10 patrons get to see the video versions of these shows. And I don't cut as much out in the editing of the video version as I would the audio version. So if we mess up, if Matt falls out of his chair or has to swat at a bug or something like that, I don't cut that out. That's happened before.
Happened.
Yeah. And we also will put out one episode every week that is a little bit shorter than a main episode, and it could be any topic. It runs the gambit of what we talk about. Sometimes we talk about pirates. Sometimes we talk about slang words, and it's just different stuff that interests us. So if you're interested in hearing us do a looser version of this show with different topics, go over there, patreon.com/graveyardtales, sign up for one of the 3 levels that we've got.
Adam, you know, you and I, we stay so busy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're either working on the show or you're working around the house or you're doing something with the kids. I mean, it's just constant. It seems like it never ends, and you don't really get the opportunity to just stop and have fun. And a lot of people, myself included, you either push that time for fun way down on the list, or you feel guilty when you take the time to have a little fun for yourself.
Yep, exactly.
Well, one of the easiest ways that I've found to just stop and have a little bit of fun is by playing Best Fiends.
That's true.
So, you know, you've earned it. You know, you work hard, take your time to have some fun, and pull out your phone and play Best Fiends. So, I mean, you know, it's not the typical puzzle game. You know, there's so much more to it, and it's great. I mean, you can just stop, say, hey, I'm going to take a break, and I want to have a little fun, and I'm going to play Best Fiends.
Yep, exactly. And I was actually just talking to a friend of ours today, in fact, about how busy we have been here lately, and it's true. The best way to get a little free time to yourself and enjoy yourself is to play Best Fiends. Sometimes I'll just go hide out in the bathroom and play Best Fiends for a little while in there to kind of decompress and all that. And I'm on, I forgot to look at it right before we started, but I'm on like level 900 and something. So I'm getting up there. Obviously not anywhere near Ashley or Amanda. They smoke us every time they get on, and they're like completing 5 levels when I've got 1. But either way, I enjoy it, and I like the fact that it doesn't matter where we're at. I can take time and I can play Best Fiends. I don't have to have a Wi-Fi connection or anything like that. We're actually going camping this weekend. So good thing to do, laying there in the tent, playing Best Fiends. I don't need Wi-Fi. It's great.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're going camping next weekend. So, I always know, I can kick back at night. I got no phone signal. Nobody's going to call me. And I can play Best Fiends with no problem at all.
Exactly. Best Fiends is free to download, and it's a mobile puzzle game like you imagine, but they have thousands of exciting levels for a new adventure all the time and a new challenge every time you play. And there's dozens of unique fiends to collect, so you can customize your team of fiends to defeat the menacing slugs. And like we said, you can play offline, so you'll never be stranded if you lose your internet connection. And they've got brand new events and challenges that pop up all year round, so you've always got a chance to earn exclusive in-game items, characters, and rewards. They're always adding levels. You're not going to beat this thing. It's not like Mario Brothers when we were a kid and we beat it within a few months. They keep adding levels, so you can just keep right on playing. And if you want to join us in playing Best Fiends, and a lot of our listeners in the graveyard, they post about their progress all the time and their buddy numbers, and they become friends on the Best Fiends game and stuff like that. You can download it for free in the Apple App Store or on Google Play. That's Friends Without the R, Best Fiends.
That's right. You've earned your fun time. So go to the App Store or Google Play and download Best Fiends for free. Plus, you can earn even more with $5 worth of in-game rewards when you reach level 5.
That's great.
Yeah, it is great. That's Friends Without the R, Best Fiends.
So, Matt, I'm going to go ahead and stop the intro there and just say, what are we talking about tonight, brother?
Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about something weird that actually Amanda brought up. She sent Adam and I a link to this, and we kind of looked into it, and then before we knew it, we're dedicating an entire show because it's just so strange. So back in 1980, somebody erected a...
Stop there. Oh, never mind.
It's like, wait a minute, what? What did I say?
It was the 80s, so I just was thinking.
Yeah, it was the 80s. So they erected this granite monument in rural Georgia that has become known as the Georgia Guidestones. And if you're from Georgia, you may not even know it exists.
Yeah.
It's way out. It's about 2 hours from Atlanta by car. So it's really strange. And when we started looking into this, it got even stranger. So
I texted Matt at one point and I said, I am having trouble getting my brain to function on this topic. Yeah. Because there is something about this that makes absolutely zero sense to me.
Yeah, there's a lot about it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk about that tonight. And I think if you've not heard of this, or maybe you've just kind of seen it in passing, I think you're going to be surprised that this thing is right here in the middle of rural Georgia.
Right. Yeah.
I had never heard of it. I had
heard about it, but until we got that link, I didn't think even about looking into it, because I just thought it was another monument, because the U.S. has a ton of monuments across, from coast to coast. There's monuments everywhere. And I just thought it was another monument dedicated to some war hero or something like that. And I didn't think anything else about it. But then it's totally not that. It's not. So as we always say, go check our sources down at the bottom of the show notes. You can find all the links from where we found this information. And there is a lot more, definitely a lot more in this that we are not going to cover just because it either is way too weird or would take up way too much time.
Right. Yeah. It would. In fact, we kind of talked about before we started recording that there was a lot of stuff we just left out just for the sake of keeping the show under 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, a lot of conspiracy theories, a lot of ideas of how these things came to be. And we really don't know.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about how we don't know.
Right. And there's a lot of background history, tangential history that I could have gone into that I just decided to leave out because I figured people would fall asleep and I didn't want to do that.
That's right.
Now, the Guidestones, they're located at 1031 Guidestones Road in Elberton, Georgia. It's 7 miles north of Elberton, technically, on Georgia Highway 77. So if you're from Georgia, you may know where that is, and you'll know that's out in the middle of BFE.
Yeah, it is.
Now, it's a 19-foot high monument, and it displays a 10-part message espousing the conservation of mankind and future generations in 8 different languages. Now, the Guidestones also serve as an astronomical calendar, and every day at noon, the sun shines through a narrow hole in the structure and illuminates the day's date on an engraving. The names of 4 ancient languages are inscribed on the sides near the top: Babylonian cuneiform, Classical Greek, Sanskrit, and Egyptian hieroglyphics. And I'm going to pause right there, Matt. Why, in the U.S., would any of those 4 languages be prominent on a monument?
I have no idea.
The amount of people that could actually read those languages in the U.S. is going to be slim to none. There are people that can.
Yeah.
But probably not in rural Georgia.
And not on a monument that was built in 1979-80.
Right.
I mean, it just, again, like we said, there's a lot of this that just doesn't make sense.
No. And not making sense is putting it lightly, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But it says the Guidestones are mysterious in origin because no one really knows the identity of the group of sponsors that provided its specifications, which we will get into here in a minute when Matt takes over. We'll get into more of that. But first, let's take a look at the area where the Guidestones were placed, because I don't think, when I was looking into this, I don't think it was a coincidence that this area was chosen.
Yeah.
There's a reason, and maybe some of that is due to these facts here. I don't know. Now, the first part comes from the New Georgia Encyclopedia. It says the county seat of Elbert County in Georgia's Piedmont region is Elberton. So it was officially incorporated in 1803 and originally known as Elbertville. Now, Elberton has managed to outlive several rival towns in the area and is now the county's largest city with a population of, drumroll, 4,653 people.
Yeah, that's it.
So, I mean, honestly, that's a small town, and it being the largest one in the area.
And if you look at where it is, it's in the northeast corner of Georgia, right up along the, I guess that's South Carolina border. Again, I mean, it because of where it is, it does not seem random.
Right.
I mean, you say, well, how in the heck would you know that? Because there's even if you were just choosing a location at random, this one probably wouldn't even make the list.
No.
I mean, it just seems it's so remote, but not that remote. That you'd often wonder, who's going to see this?
Right. And maybe it was placed there specifically for a certain set of people that would be in that area, but I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe being seen wasn't the intention.
Right. Now, this area is also one of the nation's most important producers of granite monuments and memorials. So that's why I'm wondering if this was intentional, that this area was picked. Now, during the 1890s, Elberton called itself the Granite City, and after the turn of the century, the granite capital of the South. Soon thereafter, it began to claim the title of Granite Capital of the World. And I got to break in. It's weird that this is in Elberton. My great-grandfather's name was Elbert.
Yeah.
And you don't hear that name anymore.
Uh-uh.
Like that, Elbert is not a name that you hear often anymore.
Right.
His friends called him LB, though. And I think I've told this story before. One of the first times I used a Ouija board, I asked for information that would prove to me that it wasn't the people with me that were doing it. So I said, what is my great-grandfather's name? He was still alive at the time. It came back LB. I freaked out. I walked away.
I would have to.
But yeah, that when I see Elbert, that's what pops into my head. Anyway, now this next part comes from Fox 5 Atlanta, and there was a piece that they did on the Elberton area and the guide stones and all that, and that link is down in the show notes. But this says that it just so happens that Elberton is located on what could be called a river of rock with unusually high-quality granite running right through the area. According to Christopher J. Kubas of the Elberton Granite Association, quote, you're talking about a vein of granite that is 35 miles long, it's about 6 miles wide, and it's about 2 to 3 miles in depth of solid rock. So there's an abundance of granite available, some of which we'll probably never get to, end quote.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Imagine living there and trying to put in a swimming pool.
Oh, yeah, dude.
I live in Middle Tennessee. My parents put in a pool, an in-ground pool, when I was 14. Okay? They told my parents, it's going to cost this much if we don't hit rock. But if we hit rock, we're going to have to blast, and that means it's going to cost this much more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So I remember my parents being like, well, this is a toss of the dice, but my dad was like, he's going to hit rock.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough, about 4 feet down, gunk.
Yep.
And that's it, because, we sit on a big rock.
Yep.
And that was just like what, slate and crap, that you just typically would see, not granite.
Yeah. I dug.
You're digging down and be like, what is this?
Yeah. And there's no blasting that away. There's no, you gotta, but truthfully, if you dug down in your own backyard and you're like, hey, look at all this granite. It's like, I'm going to start making countertops. I was going to say, I'd be selling it. And that's what I'd be doing. Now, this goes on to say, so how did Elberton granite come to be so famously used for monuments? The answer lies in the strange story of a scandalous statue nicknamed Dutchie. Now, according to Kubas, a group of women in the 1890s decided they wanted to build a granite monument in the town square to commemorate Confederate veterans who had passed away in the war. However, things didn't quite go according to plan. Quote, the sculptor was probably a German immigrant, maybe from up north, who had never seen a Confederate soldier. So when he sculpted Dutchie, he actually sculpted Dutchie with a Union uniform, says Kubas.
I'm sorry. This story is so funny to me.
Yeah.
I mean, It is hilarious that this happened.
Oh, I know. It says the last thing people here in Elberton wanted was a statue of a Northern Union soldier looking over them. I'm sure that's true.
Just this constant reminder.
Yep. Yeah, right. Well, Dutchy soon became the most hated man in town, and in 1900, angry townspeople yanked him down. But as news of Dutchy spread, so did the fact that the granite from which he was sculpted was so pure and beautiful. Thus, craftsmen began using Elberton granite for monuments, helping launch an entire industry. So There's a good chance that if you have a granite monument anywhere near you, it was probably Elberton granite.
Yeah. I mean, and go into a store, go into a granite supplier. There's, a rock. What am I talking about? That does like countertops and that kind of stuff. Has marble and granite and all those.
A rockyologist shop.
Yeah, that's it. There's one right here in town.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go in there, Georgia granite is something that's a preference.
Yeah.
And it's more expensive.
Oh yeah. Now we'll go back to the encyclopedia here, and it says Elberton's origins date back to the decade before the American Revolution, so 1775 to 83, when settlers from Virginia and the Carolinas, following Indian trails and wilderness passes through the lower Appalachian Mountains, began to filter into the Savannah and Broad River valleys. According to local lore, in 1769, William Woodley and a small number of pioneer families were driving flocks of turkeys through the area on their way to market in Augusta. The party camped in a hardwood valley near a beautiful spring and decided that it would be a good place to settle. So after selling their goods in Augusta, the party came back to the spring and established a frontier settlement. So that's supposedly how Elberton got its start.
Yeah. Which is pretty interesting, which because of that actually plays into some of the conspiracy theories as to why the Guidestones exist. But I mean, let's talk about it. Why does anybody care? Somebody put up, a big granite structure. Who gives a flip? This is why. Right. Okay. As Adam mentioned, those, the hieroglyphics, the Sanskrit, those things, it's all there along with, English and Spanish and other languages. But this is what's inscribed. And it's interesting. I'm going to do this as if you were visiting the Guidestones. Okay. Because typically the first thing you'll see is the bottom inscription. And then you just kind of read upwards. So this is what you would see if you're reading from the bottom up. Okay. The first inscription says, "Be not a cancer on the earth. Leave room for nature. Leave room for nature." Okay. That's all right.
I agree with that.
"Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite." Yeah, sounds like something from a video game.
Yeah.
Yeah. "Balance personal rights with social duties." Sounds like good advice. "Avoid petty laws and useless officials." Something that I wish had been taken to heart a long time ago.
Right.
"Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world order court."
That's an interesting way to put that.
Yeah, it is.
I somewhat agree, and then the way it's worded, I kind of feel weird about it.
I know.
I mean,
it kind of seems like what the UN would want to be.
Yep. Yeah.
But they're not quite. "Protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts."
Okay,
that's good. "Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason." So far, this just sounds like a self-help book.
Yeah, right.
Now we're getting right up here to the top now. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Two things you don't usually combine, fitness and diversity. But now we're starting to see some shades of we need to make better humans.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the way I interpret it.
Yeah.
Healthier, stronger, more diverse human race.
Yeah.
Okay.
You kind of about halfway through and into here, you kind of start seeing a path that this is taking on.
Yeah.
Where they're pushing this information or these guidelines.
Yeah. And at the top, maintain humanity under 500 million people in perpetual balance with nature. All right, let's say that again.
Yeah, right.
I added the people. So maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Now, it's not saying this area. It's not saying the United States. It is saying humanity.
Right.
So we're talking about a world population of under 500 million.
We've got 7 billion.
Yeah. 8.
8, yeah.
7.9 as of April 2022. Yeah. We're gonna get into those numbers here in a minute. But that is what's inscribed in multiple languages on the guide stones. So you can see that when you add that top inscription with the rest of it, now you're beginning to think, well, this sounds less like good advice for life and governing and more of a new world order.
Yep.
And people that are opposed to what the guide stones may or may not represent use this idea to say this is not good. This is a bad thing that is here. They don't appreciate the fact that it's there. They think it's promoting, these evil ideas. But we're going to come back to that. But let's look at the guide stones themselves. Okay. Let's look at what the monument is actually made of and how it came to be. So on a summer day in 1979, a man using the alias R.C. Christian shows up at the Elberton Granite Finishing Company, presents very detailed and specific plans, and tells them he wants to build the Georgia Guidestones. Now, the only details we have about this R.C. Christian is that he was balding, he had a fringe of white hair, and he had an accent that suggested that he was from one of the Plains states. But he also had money, and plenty of it. Now, Christian explained that the stones would function as a compass, a calendar, and a clock, and should be capable of withstanding catastrophic events like earthquakes. Okay? Now, a man named Joe Findley from the Elberton Granite Company, he assumed that Christian was just some nut job and attempted to discourage him by providing a quote for the commission, which was several times higher than any project the company had ever undertaken, explaining that the guidestones would require additional tools and consultants. But to Finley's surprise, Christian said, okay. Pretty much like, whatever.
Money didn't seem like a problem.
Yeah, money is no object. So when arranging payment, Christian said that he represented a group which had been planning the guidestones for 20 years, and they wanted to remain anonymous. To this day, nobody has been able to figure out who exactly he is. Now, according to Christian himself, this anonymity was by design, because he once said, "The group feels by having our identity remain secret, it will not distract from the monument and its meaning." But they didn't tell us what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, he may have been right. So if the monument was known to have been erected by a particular group, it would be easy to dismiss as it's just a bunch of nonsense and whatever.
Right.
But the lack of a source lets the guidestones kind of just be their own thing, and the mystery keeps people interested. I mean, look at us. We're talking about it.
I was going to say, we're doing a whole show on it. So
Now, only a few people ever met R.C. Christian. One was an attorney named Wyatt Martin, who handled the legal matters related to the guidestones and who signed a vow never to discuss his client. And it's a vow that he has kept. Another was a man named Hudson Cohn, who was present at the Granite Company when the guidestones were being created. Now, Cohn remembers Christian as being a tall, balding man with a fringe of white hair, just like the earlier description. He said he was well-spoken and gave no indication of who or what he represented. So, again, not only is there mystery about the guidestones themselves, but there's mystery about the person that was involved in their commission. Now, Christian purchased the land where the guidestones stand from a local farmer named Wayne Mullinex. The land totaled 5 acres, and Mullinex and his family were given lifetime grazing rights for the area surrounding the stones. Now, Christian would later transfer the rights to the land to Elbert County. So they stand on county-owned land right now. That's a weird enough story as it is. But let's talk about the monument and go into some details about it. Now, the monument is 19 feet, 3 inches tall, or 5.87 meters, and it's made from 6 granite slabs weighing 237,746 pounds each, or in all, not each, in all, total. That's a lot of granite.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one slab stands in the center, and there are 4 arranged around it. Now, you've got one center one, and then the other 4, they kind of go off like rays of sunlight.
Yeah.
They go diagonally out from it. A capstone sits on top of the 5 slabs, which are astronomically aligned. In addition, a stone tablet, which is set in the ground a short distance to the west of the structure, provides some notes on the history and purpose of the guidestones, but no real answer. The tablet identifies the structure and the languages used on it and lists various facts about the size, weight, and the astronomical features of the stone, the date it was installed, the sponsors of the project, and so forth. It also refers to a time capsule that's buried underneath the tablet. But there's a blank space on the stone which was intended for filling in the dates on which the capsule was buried and when it's supposed to be opened. And they have not been inscribed. So it's not really known if the time capsule is under there or not.
Right.
Because those dates weren't filled in. Now, the structure is sometimes referred to as an American Stonehenge because of the mystery surrounding it. So you've got this structure. It is astronomically aligned. It was built with, there's a hole all the way through one of the stones, and sunlight will pass through that hole, and it actually projects down on like essentially a sundial / calendar that, as based on the position of the sun, it's going to shine on what day of the year it is.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a lot that went into the design of these. As Christian said, if he's to be believed, it took 20 years to design this.
Yeah, the design, the placement of each stone, I mean, it took a lot. And
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and that's with today's technology, or at least the technology from 1960 to 1980 that they had, and it just makes me think about the old monuments from millennia ago that do something similar, and the way they came up with it, you know, to track days and all that.
Right. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, they had all that technology. We already understood this, but that may have played into the position and the location of the guidestones themselves.
Yep. Where in Georgia they put it and why Georgia and all that.
Right.
So, Matt, you may have noticed this, like I've noticed this. Most of us, when we talk on the phone, we text. But moms, they call you. They would rather hear your voice and talk to you. I mean, one of the few people in your life that will actually call you on the phone or leave a voicemail. And Mother's Day is coming up. So if you want to make your mom feel special, like she makes you feel special when she actually calls you instead of just shooting you a text, then you could get her the gift of quality premium wireless audio courtesy of Raycon. And I'll tell you, I was actually literally talking to my mother about her getting some Raycons here pretty soon. So I may get her some for Mother's Day, or get some for your wife too for Mother's Day. That's always a bonus there for you, because Raycon wireless earbuds are a must-have for supermoms, all those masters of multitasking who need to keep their hands free. And with Raycons, they can stay entertained listening to their favorite podcast, Graveyard Tales, or music, plus take phone calls with vivid voice technology, all hands-free. And Raycons are user-friendly for those moms who are just switching to wireless earbuds. They're easy to set up, easy to use, and seamless Bluetooth pairing. And like we were talking last time, Matt, you can have multiple sets of Raycons in a small little area, and they're not going to try to connect willy-nilly to any device. They're going to connect to your phone and your phone only when you pull them out.
That's right. And that is a huge bonus. Because, you know, with as many kids as we've got, you know, everybody gets together all at once, and inevitably more than one of them are using their earbuds, and somebody's going, what did my earbuds disconnect? Oh, somebody, and there I am. Hey.
Yep.
Nobody's connecting mine. Mine aren't dropping connection because mine are paired to my phone. And my phone only. And that's great. And you know, I really enjoy wearing mine when I'm working in the yard.
Yep.
And you sweat, and it gets hot. And other wireless earbuds will have a tendency to fall out, or they're not, they can't get loud enough to drown out the sound of the mower or the weed eater. You don't have to worry about that with Raycons. They are not going to fall out. You can shake your head. You can bend over.
You fall off the lawnmower.
Fall off the lawnmower. They're not coming out. And so, you know, maybe your mom likes to plant in the garden. You know, maybe she's likes to go jogging. You know, whatever. You're not going to have to worry. She's not going to lose her Raycons.
Exactly.
And, you know, we've talked about the music and everything, but phone calls, crystal clear.
Yep.
No problem. You know, you can talk on the phone. You can use only one if you need to, if you still need to be able to hear what's going on. It's outstanding. I mean, you know, it's a fantastic product at a fantastic price.
Right. And for moms on the go, Raycon offers 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life with the compact portable charging case, which is one of my favorite things, because once you get it all charged up, I only charge it maybe once a week, the whole device. And every time you take your earbuds out and put them back in the case, they start charging, and they've got one of the longest battery lives that I have found in wireless earbuds.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell Mom how much you love her and make sure she hears it in crystal clear audio quality with Raycon. Go to buyraycon.com/tales. That's BUYRAYCON.com/tales, TALES, to get 15% off your Mother's Day order.
That's right. You can go to buyraycon.com, BUYRAYCON.com/tales, TALES, to get 15% off your Mother's Day order. That's buyraycon.com/tales.
Now, the stones were unveiled during a public ceremony on March 22nd, 1980, and they were controversial immediately. Supporters like Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono was the big sponsor, you know what I mean? Not sponsor, promoter, supporter of these ideas. She said one time that their message is a stirring call to rational thinking. I think a lot of those could be considered that if you took them out of the context of they're on a big giant granite monument in rural Georgia that nobody knows who was responsible to put it there.
Yeah,
and when you take that into consideration, it makes it that kind of context blows anything you say out of the water.
Well, it seems about half of them, are rational thinking, and the other half seem to be a wish list of a weird group or person or something.
It seems like it goes from rational to radical.
Yeah.
And it just kind of flows. And when you look up what's inscribed on there, you're going to see that first one about the population. That's at the top. So if you would normally read from top to bottom. That's the first thing you get.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the first thing you get, then everything else is going to be tinted through that lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're approaching this 19-foot monument, your eyes are drawn to the thing that's going to be down there at eye level. So that's why I read them that way, because this would be, if you were to walk up on it, this is how you would see it. Mm-hmm. Then you finally look up at the top and you go, does that say 500 million?
Yeah, right.
I think we passed that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've thrown this information at you about these things. If you've never heard of them, you're like, what the hell are they talking about?
Yeah.
And you may go, okay, I've got some questions, and so do we, along with everybody else. The problem is there aren't many answers.
Right.
It's like, here this thing is, and we still don't know. Now, as I said, when you read the first one, that maintain humanity under 500 million, that's the major point of contention. Now, opponents of the guidestones say this phrase is calling for genocide. But considering that the world population in 1980 was just over 4.4 billion, that would have meant the death of almost 4 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
And by today's count, that number would swell to about 7.5 billion.
Yeah.
To get the world population down to around 500 million. And you think about this. Let's say that the world population was about 500 million. Think about how much room you'd have.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? I mean, we're talking about, even small cities have populations of 1 million or more.
Mm-hmm.
But think about all the area of the U.S., just the U.S., that's essentially, well, let's say low populated. It's maybe not unpopulated, but there's a lot of area in the U.S. where people just don't live, like deserts, large mountain ranges. You look at, areas of Montana and Wyoming, and, there's a lot of open area up there. So if you look at the world, you got to think, oh man, you get into northern Canada, there's nobody living up there, very few. You think about Siberia and those kind of places. There's not a lot of people living there. It's very few. That's a lot of territory. And you think about where most all the people live, and we're going to cut that to 500 million. Man, it seemed like you could walk around for a day or two and not see another person if you didn't want to.
Yeah.
So it seems really
unrealistic.
It is
goal.
Unrealistic. But what would happen if that was the case? Nature would take back over.
It would. I also think if you had that few people, it might be back to hunter-gatherer times. We might fall. The societies, the quote-unquote first world societies that we have across the world would probably fall without people to take care of the infrastructure and all that, and we would be back to hunter-gatherer or subsistence farming and stuff like that.
Well, you just think about things like right now, the internet. I mean, with that few people, I mean, the internet, maintaining it and keeping it functioning as we know it today would be extraordinarily difficult.
Think about toilets. If you had 500 million people in the world, you wouldn't have the people to take care of the plumbing, the electrical grid, nothing like that. We wouldn't. It would crumble.
So anyway, that tends to stick out like a turd in a punch bowl for everybody that reads it. But when you want to start digging into the mystery of the Georgia Guidestones, one of the best resources is historian Raymond Wiley, who is the co-author of The Georgia Guidestones, America's Most Mysterious Monument. Now, according to Wiley, the pseudonym R.C. Christian is a clue in and of itself. And he says a pretty blatant one, because it harkens back to a 15th century physician and mystic named Christian Rosicrucians. And the idea of the Rose Cross and the secret organization known as the Rosicrucians. Now, Christian Rosen, why can't I say that now? Christian, I still can't say it. Christian Rosicrucians is said to have founded the Rosicrucian Society in Germany in the early 15th century. But some people dispute that he was a real person at all. Mm-hmm. Some people say that he was multiple people, like the Dread Pirate Roberts or something.
Yeah.
Now, for the members of the society, Rosicrucian was a physician who had spent a lifetime gathering what he called sacred knowledge. And if you want to know even more about the Rosicrucians, we did an episode way back when about secret societies, and we discuss, the ideology behind the Rosicrucians.
We got some of that
out.
Some of that's coming up too.
Yeah, some of it's coming up. So you're going to get a tutorial on the Rosicrucians here in a minute. But he studied ancient Turkish, Sufi, and Persian paths towards understanding, as well as Western medical knowledge. He supposedly traveled throughout the Middle East, being instructed by masters of ancient wisdom. When he returned, Rosicrucian supposedly founded his own church to pass on the learning to make sure that it didn't die with him. So at first, all the members were doctors. Each one took an oath to heal the sick without payment, to maintain the secrecy of the fellowship, and to find a replacement for Rosicrucian before he died. The sacred knowledge is said to include elements of alchemy and psychic manipulation. So modern Rosicrucians are believed to have even been able to tap the ultimate power of the human mind. Some think the sect has evolved and they now seek to protect and guide humanity away from its own destruction. Now, others have accused the Rosicrucians of being just pure evil. But, that, again, it's one of those things where you're like, look at these ideas and you're going, that's not so bad. That sounds all right. That would actually be pretty good. Wait, what did you just say?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That could probably be true about a lot of things.
Yeah.
But it's a connection now, and it's one of the only connections we have as to what was the idea behind the construction of the Georgia Guidestones. It gives us a little bit more insight as to what might have been their inspiration, but again, we don't know. So Adam's going to talk a little bit more about the Rosicrucians and why we think this may be connected with modern day Rosicrucians.
Right. And, he said the guy's name, R.C. Christian. It very possibly could stand for the Rosicrucian Christian, to tie it, not just to Rosicrucians, but just to, here's the order. My pseudonym is a nod to the order. Now, this part comes directly from what the Rosicrucian order says about themselves. Now, the Rosicrucians are a community of philosophers who study and practice the natural laws governing the universe. Our mission is to provide seekers with the spiritual wisdom necessary to experience their connectedness with the miraculous world around us and to develop mastery of life. Our studies include the mysteries of birth and death, the illusory nature of time and space, awakening of the psychic consciousness, human consciousness and cosmic consciousness, mystical powers of vowel sounds and mantras, the creative power of visualization, influence of thoughts on health, development of the intuition, psychological and mysticism, metaphysical healing, sacred architecture, and spiritual alchemy. Now, it all seems, all of that is very, I guess, what people would consider modern day woo-woo.
Yeah, well, a lot of it you can you find in Eastern religion, and especially when you're talking about like Confucianism, Buddhism, there's a lot about self-betterment and enlightenment. So on the surface, it doesn't sound that bad because it sounds very introspective. It's about me and how I fit into the world and unlocking my full potential. How many different theologies have we seen that take a similar path?
Right.
They may branch off in other directions, but there's a core idea of you want to make yourself a better human. You want to unlock your full potential, and we're going to help you seek that out just as we are seeking it out.
Right. Now, they go on to say that the ancient mystical order Rosicrucis is the Latin form of the organization's name, which literally translates into the ancient mystical order of the Rose Cross. Now, there is no religious connotation associated with this symbol. The Rose Cross symbol predates Christianity, it says, and the cross symbolically represents the human body, and the rose represents the individual's unfolding consciousness. The Rosicrucian Movement, of which the Rosicrucian Order, AMORC, is the most prominent modern representative, has its roots in the mystery traditions, philosophy, and myths of ancient Egypt dating back to approximately 1500 BCE. In antiquity, the word mystery referred to a special gnosis, a secret wisdom. Now, thousands of years ago in ancient Egypt, select bodies or schools were formed to explore the mysteries of life and learn the secrets of this hidden wisdom. Only sincere students displaying a desire for knowledge and meeting certain tests were considered worthy of being inducted into these mysteries. Over the course of centuries, these mystery schools added an initiatory dimension to the knowledge they transmitted. It is further traditionally related that the order's first member students met in secluded chambers in magnificent old temples where, as candidates, they were initiated into the great mysteries. Now, all of this is still from what they say. Says Pharaoh Tutmosis III, who ruled Egypt from 1500 to 1447 BC, organized the first esoteric school of initiates founded upon principles and methods similar to those perpetuated today by the Rosicrucian order. Decades later, Pharaoh Amenhotep IV was initiated into the secret school. The most enlightened pharaoh, history's first monotheist, was so inspired by the mystery teachings that he gave a completely new direction to Egypt's religion and philosophy.
Yeah. It all goes back to Egypt.
It always seems to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Aleister Crowley and all the time that he spent in Egypt. You consider the pyramids and their connection with, astrological bodies. Yeah. I mean, all of these kind of secret societies, they all seem to eventually get back to Egypt in some fashion.
Yeah. Yeah. And it always seems to go back to the quote unquote mysterious teachings of Egyptian priests and pharaohs of the time. Now I'm going to skip ahead in what they say a little bit and get up to the 21st century. And it says, in the 21st century, we feel strongly that these teachings will play an increasingly important role in humanity's evolution. With fast-paced technological advancements and its effects upon the environment and the human psyche, people are searching for an inner, ever-reliable source of strength and balance. Perhaps now more than ever, we are reaching out for understanding, for mystical illumination, for spiritual guidance, for harmony and peace. Through its unique system of instructions and its humanitarian ideals, the Rosicrucian order offers a beacon of light to all who seek the answers to life's questions by following this inner path to wisdom. So in what they're saying about the 21st century there, it does seem to align with the inscriptions on the Georgia Guidestones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this isn't like a big stretch.
No.
I mean, when you look at those ideals and you look at those inscriptions, there's a lot of similarities there. And, the inscriptions are written in hieroglyphics.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and again, Sanskrit.
You've got a connection to, ancient languages. You've got a direct connection to Egypt. So, I mean, there's enough meat on the bone there to make this relationship.
Yeah. And I feel like we talked about this in the Secret Order, the Secret Societies episode that we did, but we mentioned it a minute ago too. There's a mistaken thought that the Rosicrucians are a ancient Christian order.
Right.
Because it has a cross in it. Well, it's not that case. They're an esoteric, very human-centrist, spirit-centrist society. So it again leads to those inscriptions on the guidestones, because the guidestone inscriptions don't take a very Christian-oriented path.
Right.
And neither do the teachings of the Rosicrucian order. Now, this comes from an encyclopedia section on the Rosicrucians, and I thought this was interesting, and Matt touched on some of it, but it kind of muddies the water of the inception of the Rosicrucian movement and how they say it came about versus what philosophers and historians say.
Mm-hmm.
This says that the origins and teachings of the Rosicrucians are described in 3 anonymously published books that have been attributed to Johann Valentin Andrea. He lived 1568 to 1654. He was a Lutheran theologian and teacher who wrote the utopian treatise Christianopolis in 1619, the Fama Fraternitatis of the Meritorious Order of the Rosy Cross in 1614, the Confession of the Rosicrucian Fraternity 1615, and the Chemical Marriage of the Christian Rosicrucians 1616. They recount the travels of Christian Rosicrucians, who Matt mentioned, the putative founder of the group, who is now generally regarded as a fictional character rather than a real person. According to the books, Rosicrucian was born in 1378 and lived for 106 years. After visiting the Middle East and North Africa in search of secret wisdom, he returned to Germany and organized the Rosicrucian order in 1403. He erected a sanctuary in 1409, where he was entombed after his death in 1484. The alleged discovery of the tomb 120 years later became the occasion for the public announcement of the order's existence. Now, in the 19th century, new Rosicrucian societies appeared as part of a general occult revival that took place in Europe and the United States. The first, the Rosicrucian Fraternity, was established in San Francisco in 1858 by the American spiritualist and abolitionist Pascal Beverly Randolph. Lived from 1825 to 1875. Several groups, such as the Societies Rosicruciana in Anglia and the Societies Rosicruciana in Civitatibus Foderitas, excuse the pronunciation. I'm
glad you got them.
Doing the best I can. This was founded in England in 1866 and 1880, respectively, emerged out of Freemasonry. So those last two, apparently, the Freemasons then moved to the Rosicrucianism.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the two most successful modern Rosicrucian organizations were established in the 20th century. The ancient mystical order Rosicrucis, AMORC, who we were reading about a minute ago, was founded in New York City in 1950 by H. Spencer Lewis. Claiming that he had learned the teachings of the order of European Rosicrucians, Lewis attracted new members from around the world by distributing his teachings in mail order lessons. Regarding Egypt as the cradle of Rosicrucian wisdom, he subsidized the creation of a highly acclaimed Egyptian museum at the group's headquarters in San Jose, California. The other important modern organization in Rosicrucian Fellowship, whose founder, Max Heindel, attended lectures in Germany by the Theosophist Rudolf Steiner. After publishing purportedly secret doctrines against Steiner's wishes, Heindel taught a form of Rosicrucianism heavily influenced by Theosophy. The Rosicrucian Fellowship was founded in Seattle in 1909, and it inspired the creation of other groups, including the Lectorium Rosicrucianum, which was founded in the Netherlands in 1924 by two of Heindel's Dutch students, Jan van Rijkenborg and Catherine de Petrie. This was closed by the Nazis. It was reorganized after World War II and subsequently became a worldwide institution. So it's got a weird, tangled history, and depending on where you look, You'll see different origin stories for it. But no matter where they started or how it started, the thinking now and has been for all of the 20th and 21st century is this mystical order, supposedly from Egypt, that, like you were saying, teaches you to look introspectively. But it's weird.
And the interesting thing that I take from this is that not only are the Rosicrucians real, I mean, you know, there is enough documentation and writings and history to know that these people did exist, and they still exist today.
Mm-hmm. They did and do exist.
Right. So it's not way off base. I mean, I could see where people say, you know, this ancient organization isn't throwing up monuments in the modern era, but they exist, so why not? I mean, you know, it seems plausible. I mean, it really does.
Mm-hmm.
And plus we know that a lot of these secret societies have members that are wealthy. And, you know, we've talked about other secret societies, you know, these wealthy, powerful people are drawn to these type of organizations.
They got all this money and they're bored and they're like,
right.
I need this weird esoteric teaching that I didn't grow up with. And
I mean, you know, and I'm sure, you know, you can go online and you can join. I mean, you can sign up and you can purchase the teachings, and you know,
I've always thought if I joined, like I've got buddies who are Freemasons.
Mm-hmm.
I always wondered if I joined, would they let me move up high enough in the ranks, being that I do what I do and I talk about this stuff for a living here. Would they allow me up in the ranks to learn the secrets?
Yeah.
And if they did, would I learn any crazy secrets that I'm like, oh my God, I really want to talk about this? You know,
and then you're terrified to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes me want to so bad.
Yeah.
But I know I'm not going to learn anything.
Well, yeah,
revealing about the society or who runs the world or anything like that. You know,
just know that you know when you sign up and you pay your fee, you're not going to get, you know, a package in the mail that says, "Hey, here they are, all the secrets. We're giving them to you away for $99.95. You too can know all the secrets, but don't talk about them." But
most of what you would run into is just a bunch of old dads and granddads trying to get away from their families on the weekend to drink beer. That's about 90% of what Freemasonry is nowadays.
You know, it's that's what it's kind of turned
Probably
into.
Same with Rosicrucianism.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's something to do. But there's been other theories as to why they exist that don't involve the Rosicrucians, although it does seem to fit quite well, at least in my opinion. But there are some interesting other ideas, going back and looking at, you know, the stones themselves, how they were constructed, who possibly paid for them, and things like that have led people to come up with some other ideas. Now, this is an interesting factoid that I didn't know where else to put, so I put it right here. As we mentioned, the inscriptions are written in several different languages, and it's written in English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Mandarin, and Russian. Okay? Now, in researching this, I heard multiple times in different interviews, videos, and in some articles that this was done because these were the most common languages throughout the world. Let's clear that up. Okay. Missing from the top 8 languages are Bengali, Portuguese, Japanese, and German.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And why are Hebrew and Swahili on the list? They're not even in the world's top 50 languages.
Right.
Okay. So even, and here's an interesting point about that. Even if you're only considering languages that are spoken in the United States, the top 8 are still missing Cantonese, French, German, Tagalog, Vietnamese, and Italian. Okay. Yeah. I mean, those on top of the other languages, those are the most common languages spoken in the U.S. where the monument is. So,
so
they didn't even include all the languages in the U.S.
Yeah, it either seems like they were not going with the most popular languages, like some people have interpreted, or they got their facts wrong in doing it. Because I don't even think in 1980 that would have been the case for top 8 languages.
So I had some theories about why these would have been included, but I couldn't get everything to fit, much like a lot of people do. But I'll tell you anyway. So looking back at like ancient history and different empires, dynasties, influential rule. If you look at those and how they influence history, so you say, okay, Mandarin, Chinese dynasties, there's tons of ancient history, and we're talking about, a huge area with an enormous influence on history. Okay. So I get Mandarin. Okay. Arabic, same thing. Okay. Major impact on history. The Middle East is widely considered where, the world population began. Okay. So we include Arabic, Hebrew. If you look at the influence of, not just Christianity, but Judaism, on the world, okay. We'll include Hebrew, even though it's not in the top 50 languages now. We'll include that because it was influential. Hindi. Now that kind of threw me for a loop. I was thinking, okay, is there a large part of history that was influenced, by Indian culture? India didn't have a big empire. In fact, they were a part of the British Empire.
Yeah, but the one thing I can say that maybe would bring them into this discussion of esoteric beliefs is the Hindu religion and what they believe. It kind of falls in line with some of these Rosicrucian teachings, and their creation story has started coming back into popularity here in the last several decades, due to people looking back at I hate to say this, but the ancient astronaut theory, because of how supposedly their gods rode around on ships in the sky and stuff. So it could be that that's put in there because whoever did these tablets or commissioned these tablets leans toward that theory.
Yeah.
Because it's not a largely religious teaching. The Rosicrucians aren't. So maybe they lean toward the more ancient astronaut type of deal,
right,
which we know people say that about the Egyptians. They say that about ancient Indian cultures.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I'm trying to make it fit, and
it gets
I
hard.
Don't know.
It's
it
hard.
Does.
And, I realized something, going into this that, earlier I had told Adam, I was like, hey, it's only 8 languages. You had it listed as 12. What I wasn't thinking then was that it also is included in hieroglyphics and Sanskrit. So essentially dead languages. These are the modern languages that are still spoken. So we were both right.
4 languages.
Yeah, we were both right with that. Now we for some reason when we talked about it, we couldn't figure out why did we put this in here? That's why. Is because you've got essentially like 4 dead languages that are included in these inscriptions. But again, you can understand
the Vimanas. That was the word I was trying to come up with the ancient teachings of India, the Vimanas.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff about their ancient astronaut, their gods riding on spacecraft and stuff like that.
Okay. So. Yeah. So maybe that influence fits in there, but you definitely would see how at least hieroglyphics in Sanskrit would fit in there too, because of their influence on history, and then of course cuneiform. Yeah, cuneiform. Yeah. But then you look English. Well, yeah, I understand that. Spanish as well, and Spain, had a very large influence on history. Especially Western history too.
Yep.
So, you begin to kind of think, well, maybe they were just the languages were more of a timeline through history, of who influenced the world culture the most at the time. Will include these languages. But again, that's just my idea.
Yeah, and
as to why they would have chosen these particular languages.
It's as good an idea as any, since we don't know. There's no definitive answer on that. So I like your thought on that, because all of these languages, you can look back and they have a very important role on the development of societies and the development of our thinking and our legends and our history of how the world was created, and they all have a very vivid structure of their gods and history and stuff like that. So it makes sense. I mean, if you go and look at the societies that spoke these languages, then go look at their creation stories and all that, they all seem to be pretty similar, but they're all very vivid and elaborate.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So, so there are other theories. And one particular person, I really dig his theory. This is Hudson Cohn, who I mentioned earlier was one of the men who actually met R.C. Christian. And he was quoted as saying, anytime you have something with an air of mystery around it, you invite different interpretations. Now, those differing interpretations, Cohn insists, are one of the things that have kept the Georgia Guidestones at the center of so much speculation and public interest. He says he's had people tell him that this is the holiest spot on the planet. He said, while others will tell him that it's the location is somehow profane or evil, and it's a focal point for satanic power.
I actually tried looking up ley lines and to see if ley lines crossed in Elberton, and I could not find specifically anything about that.
No.
There was a lot of stuff about Savannah. Yeah. People doing ley lines around Savannah.
Yeah, I mean, look, Savannah's haunted as hell, so.
Yeah.
But this place is not. I mean, there's really nothing paranormal about this at all. But Cohn doesn't believe that spot or the Guidestones are evil. In fact, he thinks that the questions the Guidestone raise are themselves its truest purpose. He says, I believe it was put here to stimulate curiosity. it's a big conversation piece.
Maybe.
And that kind of makes sense. I mean, what better way to get people to talk and think about the nature of our relationship to the world and to one another than create an enormous mystery that gets people to talk about it?
George's coffee table book.
Yeah. And so you present this mystery in the world's greatest languages so that all can participate in the discussion. Okay. I kind of like that. But what really is odd to me is that no one has claimed ownership of this.
Mm-hmm.
No one has just come out and said, yeah, we did it. This is the way we think. These are, we think these are good principles. And that whole 500 million people thing, that's just a concept. It's just an idea. What would it be like? I mean, look, Adam and I spent how much time talking tonight about what it would be like if there was only 500 million people in the world.
Several minutes. Yeah.
So, I mean, that if that was their purpose, then they did it. They absolutely did it, at least for the two of us and plenty of other people. Because like we said, there's a lot of stuff about this out there. I mean, you can follow our sources and you can find a lot of stuff that we didn't even bring up. I told Adam, I found a conspiracy theory that the guy that owned the granite company, that he did this. This was his deal to get people to buy more granite. And I'm like, you got to be joking. I would think at some point something would have come out where they said, hey, this was a big publicity stunt.
Don't you think if it was that, they would put on the tablet somewhere, buy more granite?
Sure.
Or they would have put, granite is the source of life in one of the, you must have granite in your home to survive whatever.
Yeah.
And to sell more granite. They wouldn't have not mentioned granite if that was the case.
Here's the thing. If I want somebody to listen to this show, I like to talk about this show.
Yeah, right.
And what we do and how we do it. If I want somebody to buy more granite, what the heck is building this monument with this strange new world order, I heard somebody call it, a modern day 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Why do that? That would be the most awkward and subtle way to advertise your business ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought,
well, maybe it's like how I get people to listen to this show. I mention the name, but then I tell them about another podcast. And so they come and they listen to Graveyard Tales expecting that other podcast I was telling them about, and then they just get hooked on this one. So maybe that's what they're doing. They want you to buy more granite, but they're telling you about something totally different.
Yeah.
But using their granite.
What y'all don't know is that Adam has a separate Twitter account for a podcast that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
and people, it sounds super interesting, and people go to it, and it's us.
It's a link just to this show. Yeah.
That's not bad.
I'm probably going to do that now. So.
How do we get people from a different demographic? We trick them. That's what we do.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the Guidestones is actually a trick to get you to listen to a podcast.
Hey, maybe
we haven't decoded it yet, and it's
1980. It was a radio show, and now it's a podcast. We don't know because they're not owning up to it.
Well, I know who did it.
Oh,
Scott and Forrest from Astonishing Legends. If you look down at the very bottom of one of the Guidestones there, it says Astonishing Legends down at the bottom. I mean,
it says, if you believe any of this at all.
Right.
So
now I just wait for Forrest to text me and go, how did you know?
All these years and two goofballs figure it out.
Right. Us two idiots.
So anyway, we've had a little bit of fun with this, but I mean, seriously, I grew up in Tennessee, and I live here now, and I've never heard of this. And you know, with the stuff that Adam and I look at, and we find researching other topics, this has not come across. I mean, when Amanda sent me this article, I was like, I've never heard of this. I don't know what this is. What are you sending me? She's like, I think this would be cool to look into. And it was. I mean, but it's a mystery. And we may never know what the real purpose was, who it was that commissioned the construction of the guidestones, but there they stand.
Something tells me those people are already dead.
Yeah.
And the secret has gone with them.
But, you know, Elbert County, you know, they take good care of this. I mean, you know, it's been vandalized a couple of times. You know, they make sure that it stays clean and protected. There are security cameras there, with signs that says this area is under video surveillance. And, you know, so they at least, you know, make an effort to,
which is interesting.
We like this, you know, let's leave it here.
It's interesting in and of itself that somebody bought the land and put this up and then turned the land back over to the county, and the county hasn't torn it down and
right.
done something else with it. It's county property, and they're leaving it up and they're taking care of it, even though they had nothing to do with putting it up. That's just interesting to me. And I know maybe I'm just skeptical of so many things, but the government of that county would continue to take care of the land and the monument and all that.
Yeah.
It's odd. It's interesting. It's kind of cool that they do that, but then it also makes me ask why. You know?
Yeah. Right.
Why?
Why are you
putting that much money and effort into taking care of something that you don't know what it is, and you didn't pay for it? You just acquired the land, and
I don't know. And that's come up too, that it was a thing to draw tourism to that area, but there was a catch.
What else are you going to do there?
That's right. I mean, that's right. There's nothing else there. And what's interesting is in the instructions for the guidestones that were presented by Christian, they're not allowed to have any kind of like gift shop, you know, T-shirt booths, any of that. They weren't allowed to commercialize it in any way.
Yeah.
So it really makes you think
Guidestone
there
merch.
was a higher purpose for this. You know, it wasn't for tourism, and you know, and unfortunately, if you know, a lot of places in the U.S. by now, it would be inside a little fence, in a little bitty courtyard, and you would have townhomes and apartments surrounding it, and it would be like attached to a playground, because it's open land and they're building crap everywhere.
If you'd have done it in Dallas County, they would have put walls up around it and started charging you to go in to see it.
That's right.
I guarantee they would have built something around it, and if you wanted to go see the Dallas Guidestones, you'd have to pay $45 per person to walk around it for an hour.
Yeah.
And they would have totally ignored the T-shirt thing and started selling Dallas Guidestone T-shirts.
Yeah.
Guarantee.
You could buy little key rings with it. You could get a Guidestone flavored snow cone. You'd watch like a 15-minute
air freshener
video
for your car mirror.
Yeah. You'd watch like a 15-minute video that would look like a History Channel documentary telling you all this stuff. And then you'd get to go see them, and you'd walk around and you'd look, you'd take your photos, and then you'd move on. That you can drive right up to these things.
Yep.
I mean, it's just right there off the road. You pull off, there it is.
Maybe that is the key to the placement of these guidestones, because the people that did it knew if you put it in a city similar to Dallas, because there's several of those around the country, that it would become a tourist trap and the county would have taken over and started charging or torn it down. So maybe that is the reason for Elberton, Georgia, because they knew it was far enough out. Maybe they knew how the government was run there, and they knew these people would take care of it and not try to capitalize on the fact that it's there.
Yeah, maybe so. But extremely interesting. And like I said, still a mystery.
Yeah, we've figured nothing out this episode. This is an entire episode. We have talked for almost an hour and a half. We figured nothing out.
Nothing.
We have more questions than when we started. And I have zero answers.
Yeah,
I've
me either.
Just confused myself 3 times through this whole episode, and I'm still confused.
But maybe, just maybe, somebody in the graveyard has got some additional insight that they would like to share.
RC Christian, are you listening?
Are you listening? And if you are, go get in our Facebook group, which is where you could share this kind of information.
Or just email us.
Yeah, or just email us. You know, heck, you could call, leave it on our voicemail. We'd love to hear from you.
I'd call you back.
But I'm sure that we've got listeners that have already been familiar with it. We may even have some that have seen it. And if you have, we would love to hear those stories too. And as I said, our Facebook group is the best way to share that information with us and the rest of the graveyard.
Right. Don't
forget to check us out on Instagram and Twitter. Just go and search Graveyard Tales. And as Adam mentioned earlier, you can go to our Patreon site and become a patron. And we appreciate all the hard-earned money that has been donated to the effort that Adam and I put into this show. Don't forget our website, graveyardpodcast.com. And there you can listen to the show. You can find links to purchase Graveyard Tales merchandise because we have no such policy against selling T-shirts and keychains and coffee mugs with our stuff on it.
We'll sell it.
We will. You know, heck, you could get somebody out there has a Graveyard Tales baby onesie. So, so yeah, you know, we'll stick it on anything. But for the Georgia Guidestones, it's all I got, man.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, me too.
Until next time, we'll save you a seat in the graveyard.
See you soon.